Welcome to this explainer. You know, in a world full of endless meetings, constant pings, and shrinking attention spans, getting people to actually listen to you, it's harder than ever. So we're unpacking the absolute secret weapon of world-class communication. We're going to look at how you can take your speech titles from boring afterthoughts and turn them into powerful strategic tools that literally command a room before you even say a single word.
Right off the bat, think about this. What actually makes a speech echo in eternity while others are just forgotten instantly? As we're about to see from our source material, hitting your audience with a bold, open-ended question like this is a brilliant way to force them to think before you even clear your throat. Because the secret to a truly unforgettable presentation, it usually lives right there at the very beginning, baked into the architecture of the title itself.
Okay, let's look at today's game plan. First, we'll map out the blueprint of title types. Then we'll add the polish with rhetorical tools, look at the proof through historical impact, and finally, get into the application so you can use this toolkit yourself.
So let's dive into part 1, the blueprint. We are looking at 8 foundational ways to frame your ideas.
Pay attention to how these first 4 title types actually scale up in emotional intensity. We kick things off with declarative titles. These are your reliable workhorses, right? Super direct, highly informative. Think of something like The Case for Climate Action. They set the baseline expectation. But if you want to turn up the heat, you use a persuasive title, which actively demands a response or an action from your listeners. From there, we jump to inspirational titles. These ditch the practical arguments entirely to paint a massive visionary future, stuff like the legendary I Have a Dream. And finally, at the very peak of this psychological ladder, we have identity-based titles. When you use one of these, you aren't just sharing facts anymore. You're instantly wiring your audience for a deep sense of belonging and shared purpose before the speech even starts.
Now, building on that, these next 4 types are specifically engineered to provoke. They literally poke at the audience's mind. Rhetorical questions are incredible because they open up a knowledge gap that your listener desperately wants to close. Then you have metaphorical titles, like the Iron Curtain. These bypass pure logic entirely and hit straight at our emotions using powerful visual symbols. Contrasting titles do something different. They deliberately trap the audience in a high-stakes binary choice. Think freedom or death. It creates instant, inescapable dramatic tension. And finally, personal address titles. By using intimate words like you or we, the message cuts right through the noise. It feels insanely urgent, totally personal, and basically impossible to ignore.
All right, moving right along to section 2, the polish. Let's look at the rhetorical tools for maximum impact.
Knowing your title types is really just half the battle. We also have to know why they work inside the brain. Our minds absolutely crave rhythm, balance, and structure. We are always hunting for patterns, right? Well, enter the rule of 3. This is a structure that says concepts grouped in 3s are just inherently more memorable and way more persuasive to the human ear. 3 is literally the smallest number you need to make a recognizable pattern. It gives the listener cognitive ease, making your core message feel totally complete and way easier to lock into long-term memory.
Just look at this legendary line from the U.S. Declaration of Independence. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This perfectly proves how 3 carefully balanced ideas seamlessly build on each other. The rhythm is undeniable. It creates this melodic phrase that is literally stuck in our collective consciousness for centuries. If it was just 2 concepts, it would feel a bit abrupt. 4, it starts feeling like a tedious grocery list. The triad is an absolute rhetorical sweet spot.
Next up, we have contrasts and juxtaposition. When you purposefully jam 2 stark opposites right next to each other, you're actually manufacturing cognitive dissonance. The brain naturally wants to fix this massive gap between the 2 ideas, which forces your audience to confront a dramatic, hard-hitting choice. It instantly highlights the absolute key differences in whatever complex issue you're talking about, and it keeps everyone totally locked into your narrative.
There's honestly no better example than this iconic 1964 title from Malcolm X, The Ballot or the Bullet. Just look at how the simple, strategic use of the word or emphasizes this massive, high-stakes divide. It is dramatic, it is wildly punchy, and that sharp contrast between the democratic process of voting and extreme violence creates an overarching tension that absolutely demands your full attention from the very first syllable.
Our third tool is alliteration. That's the deliberate repetition of consonant sounds at the start of adjacent words. But guys, this is way more than just a cute poetry trick. The musicality of alliteration actually lowers the cognitive load for your audience. Our brains love this kind of auditory symmetry. It smooths out your delivery, gives you a catchy rhythm, and honestly, it makes your title so fun to say and incredibly easy to remember.
Plus, it makes you sound infinitely more confident.
Just listen to the T sounds in this quote from John F. Kennedy: "A time for testing, a time for triumph." It creates this totally natural, confident rhythm. It commands the room and brings this weighty, poetic authority to the speech, but it never feels artificially forced. The symmetry of those sounds signals to everyone listening that the thoughts behind them are incredibly organized and deliberate.
Now for Section 3, the proof. Let's look at some of history's most iconic speeches.
Think about how this maps out over time. We start way back with Pericles addressing ancient Athenians in 431 BC, then jump to profound moments like the Gettysburg Address in 1863, all the way up to Greta Thunberg cutting through the noise at the UN in 2019 with that simple, devastating rhetorical question: how dare you? Think about it. The technology has evolved from echoing stone amphitheaters to HD viral streams, but the psychological triggers are exactly the same. We are responding to the exact same ancient codes of human communication today as we were thousands of years ago.
And across all those historical moments, the source material reveals something fascinating. Whether the speaker was a revolutionary trying to overthrow a system, a conservative preserving one, a politician defending a policy, or an activist demanding change, they all neutrally relied on the exact same developmental patterns to frame their messages. These tools are completely impartial. They have absolutely no political allegiance. They are literally the physics of human persuasion, and they are available to anyone who knows how to wield them.
Which brings us to Section 4, the application. It is time to craft your own masterpiece. Let's look at a visceral contrast. Imagine a basic, kind of snooze-fest, declarative topic like, "We need education reform." Sure, it's accurate, but it has no soul. Now, apply two tools we just talked about, the rule of three and alliteration, and boom, you get better schools, better teachers, brighter future. The energy totally shifts. It goes from a dry, forgettable agenda item to a commanding, visionary title that actually makes people want to lean in and hear your solutions.
By intentionally using just one single technique from this toolkit, you completely change how the audience perceives your authority. Whether you're adding the heart-pounding urgency of "the clock is ticking," using a vivid metaphor like bridges, not walls, or dropping the heavy alliteration of power, progress, prosperity, these deliberate choices do the heavy lifting for you. They set the entire emotional stage before you even walk up to the microphone or turn on your camera.
So how do you systematically build your own commanding titles? The source gives us 4 simple steps. First, pinpoint your main argument with crystal clarity. Second, pick your framing technique from the blueprint. Figure out if you want to contrast, inspire, or provoke. Third, aggressively edit it. Keep it short and punchy and ruthlessly cut the filler. And fourth, this is crucial, make absolutely sure your speech actually delivers on the massive promise made by your title. If your title builds incredible hype but your presentation falls flat, that's basically just real-world clickbait, and you'll lose your audience's trust in a heartbeat. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought to chew on the next time you sit down to write a presentation. If your title is genuinely the very first promise you make to your audience, are you going to settle for just informing them, or are you going to step up and truly inspire them? The choice of how you frame your ideas is completely up to you, and now you've got the exact historical tools to make it happen.